County Public School Millage Public Hearing Meeting. The time is 6:03, and I'm calling this hearing to order. Today we will hear a presentation from our finance team regarding the millage rate, and then we'll open the floor for questions and public participation. Let me read a statement that may clear up some things before we get started. This is our second property tax public hearing today. Today's public hearing is to address property tax actions that are impacted by the Clayton County public school system. We recognize that overall property taxes in Clayton County are influenced by several entities, including the county government, municipalities, etc. However, today's hearing is focused specifically on Clayton County public schools and our portion of the property tax millage rate. Our goal is to provide clear and accurate information on how the school system shares in the property taxes. We appreciate your engagement in this process, and we look forward to constructive discussion that supports transparency and keeps our community well informed. Before we get started with me handing the podium over to the finance department, just want to bring up 4 different points that I want you to listen closely to the presentation. The first thing is that we're here tonight to talk exclusively about school taxes. We're not here to discuss city taxes or county taxes. Everything that you hear is related to school taxes. Secondly, if you are over 65 years old, 65 and older, and you filled out the proper paperwork with the tax commission department, you do not pay school taxes. So what we talk about today does not apply to you specifically. It applies to the children that are in Clayton County Public Schools. Next, there are 2 different taxes that happens with the school system. One is what we're talking about tonight, which is the millage rate. And then the second type of tax is the SPLOST tax that everybody in Clayton County pays on behalf of the school system. How do they pay that? They pay that every time they purchase something in Clayton County. It charges 1 cent. That bucket of money is specifically used for construction and building. That's it. So don't get that confused with the millage tax. So we collect approximately every 5 years off of that SPLOST tax about $280 million. And we use that $280 million based off of the recommendation of the superintendent who's sitting aside from me, telling us what buildings need to be renovated, what buildings need to be built, but that has nothing to do with your property taxes, okay? The last thing that I'll say before we hand it over to the finance team is that our millage rate is 19.6, 19.6. It is the exact same rate as it was last year, 19.6. The only reason why we're using the term property tax increase is because the state requires us, if property values are going up, to bring our millage rate down some to equal a level tax payment throughout the year. We couldn't afford to do that, so we left the tax rate the exact same as we had it last year. Now, if your property taxes go up, which is a double-edged sword, it means that your house value is going up. And that's why your taxes are going up, not because of something that Clayton County Public School Board of Education did. That's the 4 points that I want to make, and now I'm handing the presentation over to the finance team. The 4 things that I said, make sure you pay attention to it as she does her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't need to do a presentation. You took care of all of it. Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Smith, colleagues and community. As the chair stated, we are here to discuss, the millage rate and how it will impact you. Our hearing objectives this evening, we're gonna review the basics of the millage rate, review the board's role in setting the millage rate. We're gonna go over the digest history on how the property rates have changed over the last 13, 14 years, the impact of the millage rate on our FY 26 investment in our scholars, and then receive input from you, the community, on what we're proposing to do. So what is the millage rate? The millage rate is a rate that is applied to your assessed value of the property to determine how much property taxes you pay each year. You take that millage rate and you multiply it by that assessed value to determine the tax. It's stated as dollars per thousand, so 1 mil is equal to $1 tax per every $1,000 assessed value. So for example, our millage rate is 19.6 mils. That's $19.60 in taxes for every $1,000 of assessed value. And I'll show you how that math works later on so you can see how much that will cost. Again, the millage rate is set by the governing authority each year, whether it's the county, city, the school district, and it's published in the digest. But as Chair Straker stated, we're here this evening to discuss the millage rate for the school district. So how the millage rate works, the math. We set it at 19.6 mils. We take your fair market value, which is set by the county's tax assessor. You only pay 40% of that fair market value though. So your taxes are assessed on 40% of your fair market value. So if your fair market value of your home is $250,000, you'll pay taxes on the assessed value of $100,000. And if you live in that home, you're entitled to a $10,000 homestead exemption. So we would reduce your assessed value by $10,000, so your net assessed value, what you're actually going to be taxed on or pay taxes on is $90,000. So you take that $90,000, and remember we said it's per $1,000 evaluation, we divide it by 1,000, multiplied by the millage rate of 19.6, and your property taxes or the investment in our students is $1,764. That's how we calculate the property taxes with the millage rate. As I stated, each year, the tax assessor, the county's tax assessor does a reassessment or assesses your property. It's required by law that it's done each year. And it reflects the current fair market value of your property. That's what your house would sell for in today's market. Some of you may have had, well, a lot of us have seen significant increases in our home values over the last several years. And it's due to the home prices, the selling prices of homes. That determines the fair market value of your home, the homes in your surrounding area. They can increase or decrease again due to the rise or fall of real estate market prices. You have new construction or improvements in your area that could cause an increase in the values. And the state also mandates that we reassess properties every so many years. So if a county hasn't done any assessments or reassessments in several years, you would see a big jump in your property values. That occurred several years ago when I was at the county. They had done reassessed properties, and our property values went up a lot that year. But they have been reassessing them on a regular basis since then. So the increases that we've experienced over the past few years have been to the market price, driving those up. Your liability can change due to adjustments in the assessed value that increases the millage rate or both. The example that I'm showing you here shows, this is an actual value that I found for a home online, the tax commissioner's office for a tax bill. I looked at, started in 2019 and looked at how it increased every 2 years. The millage rate was 19.6 mils. This home had a fair market value of $219,877 in 2019. At 19.6 mils, the property tax was $1,528. In 2021, when the values increased, the millage rate remained the same, but their taxes increased. That's because the property value increased. Same with 2023. In 2025, we went down slightly, so the tax will go down slightly, maintaining the same millage. So this shows how the digest valuation or the reassessment of the property could increase your property taxes even when your millage rate remains the same. So why does the Board of Education set the millage rate? Well, one is required by law to levy ad valorem taxes or property taxes to maintain the public school system for the county. This is the revenue that's allocated to provide funding for educating our students. And this slide also shows what the value of one meal is. So for every one meal that's assessed, it generates this amount of money. And for 2026, one meal generated $12.5 million. To put that into perspective, a lot of people ask, well, why don't we use some of the things that Atlanta Public School does? I will use them because they're the closest to us in student population. One meal for them generates over $40 million because their property base is much higher than ours. So where our one meal only generates $12.5 million, theirs generates over $40 million. So that's a $30 million spread where they can do more things than we do because they have more money than we do. The proposed millage rate again for this year is 19.6 mils, and that's for the school district only. The same as the previous 2 years. It was reduced from 20 mils in 2023 to the current 19.6 mils. So the board and the superintendent recommended, the board approved it, reducing the millage rate a couple of years ago, but we've maintained the lower millage rate at 19.6 for the last 2 years, and are proposing to continue it for the next year. This shows our digest history. The first one, the one column says growth digest values, starting in 2014. That shows where our property values were in 2014. And as you can see, up to 2026, on average, there's been a 7% average change in our digest over the last 13, 14 years. The district has experienced growth and declines in the digest over the past few years. You can see the net digest change. You see somewhere there's a minus, is where it went down. And you can see where it has increased over the years. Last year, the digest increased 10%. This year, it's only 1%. On exemptions, exemptions reduce the taxes that we pay, thereby reducing the revenue for local governments. The value of the exemptions over the last 13, 14 years has grown by 134% from 2014 to 2025. However, the overall digest growth has only grown by 120%. So currently our exemptions exceed $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion and values of properties that that we're not paying taxes on, that's exempt from the tax. I spoke earlier about some of the Atlanta Public Schools in their digest. I looked at the top largest school districts in the state. We're number 6, we're the 6th largest school district in the state of Georgia. And when you look at our population, our digest, and our total M&O revenue, we're at the bottom. We're number 10 of the top 10 districts. Even Atlanta, Henry County, Fort DeKalb, all of those generate more revenue than we do because they have higher property values. So we're at the bottom when it comes to property values in the state out of the top 10 school districts. And we're serving more students than the bottom 4 districts with significantly less local revenues. So our property taxes is considered I consider a local investment in learning. If our millage rate remains the same, then why are we advertising this as a property tax increase? So on average, there's been an improvement in local property values. When you apply the same millage rate to a higher value, it results in an indirect tax increase. We have to report it as a tax increase because Georgia's tax bill of rights mandates that we do that. And we had to have 3 public hearings if we don't go with the rollback rate. Mr. Straker mentioned the rollback rate earlier. That is the rate that is revenue neutral. In other words, that's the rate that we would set to level out the increase or offset the increase in the property values. If you set a millage rate higher than that, it's considered a tax increase. So our proposed millage rate of 19.6 is higher than that calculated rollback rate of 19.5. So how does that impact me as a homeowner? On a home with a fair market value of $250,000, when we apply the 40% assessed value and the $10,000 exemption, the 19.6 millage rate would generate $1,764 for students. If we were to go with the rollback rate, the funds generated would be $1,759.50. So $4.50 difference. So by maintaining the 1960 on a home that's valued at $250,000, the homeowner would pay $4.50 more in taxes this year. So how does that impact me if my home values increase? Same $250,000 house, so last year, say it was $250,000. It increased by $10,000 to $260,000 this year. Keeping the millage rate the same would increase your taxes by $78.40 or $6.53 per month if you have an escrow account. And the impact of the district, adopting this existing millage rate provides funding to support increasing our academic achievement, using strong academic programs for our students, cultivating a school safety culture, and promoting positive working environments. Our No Dead End Sport Be Effect initiative, as well as supporting our athletic and band programs. This slide shows our budget for this year. We have an enrollment projection based on our last year's FTE count, which is what we sent to the state on our state funding of over 51,000 students. You see our total revenues, including taxes and state funding, at $698.7 million. The total expenditures are at $726.8. This also shows how we're spending the money by functional service to the students. 79% of the funds going directly to teaching and learning, which is our core business. And then we have portion of it going to maintenance, safety, and security. That's the next largest portion. 10% of that is going to that function. And then we have 6% going to student transportation and 6% to support services. When you look at where the money is going by category, the expenses by category, 88% of this is going for salaries and benefits of the staff. Teachers, paralegals, bus drivers, custodians. Parts of professional services is 15% of that, and then material supplies and services is 10% of the total expenditures that we have. So overall, when we take our total expenditures and divide it by our number of students, that comes out to an average of a little over $14,000 per student investments in our students. So in summary, our current millage rate is 19.6. We're proposing to maintain that millage rate at 19.6. So there's no change in the property tax rate. However, applying that same millage rate to a higher assessed value will result in a property tax increase, which is why again we have to advertise this as a tax increase for state law. School property taxes are an investment in our community's future. Our increased revenue supports investing in the students in our community, providing funding for those strong academic programs that I mentioned earlier, for safety and security, supporting athletic and band programs, and compensation enhancement for our teachers. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I give the floor back to you for public comments.
Thank you so much. Okay. I have a sign-in sheet which people signed in to speak when they came through the door at 6 o'clock. For those of you that are coming late, we do have another public hearing meeting on the what day is that? Right, Monday the 25th at 11 a.m. So if you want to speak, you would have to attend that meeting. For the people that are on this list, we will now start hearing from you. If there's somebody in here that wasn't able to sign up, please see me at the end of this meeting when this meeting is adjourned so that you can get my email address and send me your questions, and then I will get it to the appropriate person so that that question can be answered. I'm now going to read a statement before we start public participation. The Clayton County Board of Education welcomes public participation and will hear any interested individuals pursuant to the guidelines outlined in policy BCBI. Members of the public will not be allowed to discuss individual personnel issues or confidential student matters. Speakers must identify themselves and topics before speaking. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to speak, and time may not be yielded from one speaker to another. Board members will not respond to comments from speakers. Board members will not respond to comments from speakers. The chairman may respond as appropriate. Issues requiring possible action by the board may be added to future agendas. Issues that may need to be addressed by the administration will be duly noted. That's why you'll ask me for my email address so that if there's a question that you have at the end of this meeting and it's not answered tonight, I will get it to the appropriate person for it to be answered. Abuse of language and or personal attacks will not be permitted. My first speaker for the night is Mr. Drew Andrews.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, superintendent, and community. I'm Drew Andrews, and I am first question off the top of my head before I lose it is, when was the last time the school board went with the rollback rate? I was listening to the presentation, it was fantastic, by the way. But $4, it doesn't sound like much, but I want to let you know about some reality. I run my tax form with me from last year. It went up $3,000. And I know, depending on the zip code, a few people went up $6,000, probably even more. But for me, $3,000, that translates to $600 more a month that I'm paying in my mortgage rate. I mean, my mortgage. You know, December was one amount, and then January, $600 more. So that $4, the reality for me is I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I see that 48% of the property taxes is going to the school. That's the largest piece of the pie. It's looking at my tax sheet here. But again, I normally get 3 minutes, so I want to pay my fair share because I'm committed and I'm in love with my community, and that means our children. So whatever I have to do to make sure my return on investment is highly educated children in our community walking across the stage and either going into college, military, or the workforce. I'm committed to that. But I want to keep my home. I should not have to choose between keeping my home and helping our children in the school system. I need your help. If that means roll back so the rest of us can catch up so we can help, roll back. If that means that we need to be creative in how we do business in the community, for instance, community benefit agreement. There are businesses in the community that don't pay taxes. You know, they get incentives when they come in, they don't have to pay taxes for 10 years. Imagine if we didn't have to pay taxes for 10 years. A few years ago, on the ballot, we passed this law where we wanted businesses to pay their fair share. They weren't paying nothing in taxes. Now they have to pay about 20%. But they even got 5 years to ramp up for that. I don't think it starts at 27. But ours start as soon as it passes. We're struggling. Matter of fact, last November, we passed into law House Bill 581 because we knew that this wasn't sustainable for us. It's a property tax. I gotta go.
Yep, wrap it up, Drew.
All right.
Say your last sentence.
The 581, you guys opted out of it. I want to know, is there an alternative? And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Next, I have Ms. Raquel Davis. Ms. Davis, raise your hand. No? Okay. I have Ms. I gotta get this last name right, all right? Ms. Kia Stroger. Did I do it right? Do you have a question? If you can come up to the podium.
So I heard the presentation, which was quite nice. I understand what the ask is here a little bit better. So if I'm to get this right, the millage rate isn't gonna change, but of course, we have to take into consideration the rise in property taxes, and that could very well affect what we're paying the next time taxes come up. Okay. Just like Mr. Drew asked, what type of alternatives are being considered? Because this is Clayton County. What are we getting for staying here? Like, why don't we just pack up and move some of it? Because that's money leaving the area of the county. And like you said, we want to work with the community to, keep the kids in school, keep everything running sufficiently, but how can we do that when we're on the struggling end also? So yeah, what type of alternatives are being looked at to generate new avenues or outside the box avenues of revenue? And have we thought to tap other sources? Like, it's always on the homeowner. Who do we talk to in this county to get renters and anybody else that's living here responsible for some of this stuff? Even the parents of the kids who go to school, like, why can't we share the responsibility? Who do we talk to open up those avenues and, those type of things to get some extra money generated? So that we won't have to bear the burden of paying for the entire county and going broke in the process in this state of the economy. So yeah, that was my question. Like, what type of incentives are we gonna have to make us want to stay here? Because a lot of us, we have the option, we have the choice to go on elsewhere. So what's gonna be done to help us to want to remain here and pay?
So, yeah, thank you very much, and your points are well taken. At the end of, just as we adjourn, the superintendent will be on a 3-minute clock, and he's gonna address some of those concerns that you have and give you an idea of where this money is going. All right, but he'll be on a 3-minute clock, so he has to get it in pretty quick. Miss Colette Robinson, where are you?
I'm here, but they asked my question.
Fantastic. Thank you. Miss Kimberly Mack.
Good afternoon, everyone. The gentleman who spoke prior and the lady, they were very efficient in what they said. My name is Kimberly Brown Mack. I'm a Clayton County resident, plus I'm also a school social worker, 27 plus year educator, been living in Clayton County 29 years. And I'm with the panel right there as to say, we can't pack up and just leave Clayton County. Like I said, I have 2 children, one graduated from the previous school system I worked in, my son from Clayton County. I get it. A lot of our schools need to be repaired. I get it. It took 100 years for Jonesboro to finally be replaced. I know Clayton needs a new building. I mean, all those schools. But as the lady said, when are we gonna hold all the business owners and all those that are exempt to finally do something? As she stated, what about those persons that rent homes in Clayton County? We have to find a better way to either roll back or do something, because in the city of Atlanta where I'm working now, even though I live in Clayton County, there are persons that have lost their homes. We've got to teach our children financial literacy so that while my house paid for, if I leave it to my children, they got to know they got to pay the taxes and the insurance at a certain time, or counties will allow those taxes to go dormant so that people can lose property. So at this point in time, like the lady said, we need some help because it's causing a lot of people just to to pack up and leave Clayton County. A lot of us don't even have kids in the systems anymore.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Ms. Franklin?
How y'all doing? I think everybody that came up here pretty much hit what I wanted to ask. But I do want to say this. So basically, the millage rate is not changing, but the property taxes have already increased.
The millage rate is not changing, but if your property's value has went up,
Increased.
Right.
Yes, sir. That's what I was just trying to get clarity on. So that has already increased. So basically, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. So if that increased, my value increased, then
you'll be paying more taxes.
absolutely. And it just seems like every year, I'm one of the people that go in and I say, hey, I need a hearing for my assessment. You understand what I'm saying? We can't do that. But just giving, we're not making more money on these jobs that we have. Okay, and I feel like I make pretty good. But like every year when that money is changing, like he said, $600. I have some of my neighbors, they were like, our mortgage went up. It's not your mortgage, it's the taxes. And that's expensive. And I feel like we are being priced out, to be honest with you. We cannot afford it. I know I can't. Like my kids are grown and I want to help in any way I can. I want everybody to get a great education. But it has to be coming from somewhere else than the homeowner. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Franklin. Ms. Loria? Loria. Ms. Loria, pronounce your last name, Loria.
Yes, L'Oreal.
Thank you.
I'm gonna piggyback, the first gentleman, the first thing that, he asked was about the rollback. And I believe, if I'm correct or not, the last rollback was in 2020 that we had. Are we holding, two years ago? Okay, she says 2 years ago. So, you know, as they all stated, the millage rate, what is going to determine my millage rate? Is it where I live? What determines my millage rate? Because I'm at the border of Lake Spivey and there. So I know there's a line drawn that puts you in the high cost and low cost. So who's determining that millage rate? Who's determining what areas?
Good deal. Once you're finished, is that your only question?
No,
Give me a second. Is that your only question then?
no.
Okay, so let me let you finish,
Okay.
because once the superintendent gets up to close us out, he's gonna address that question.
Okay. And, are we holding, see these, percentages? Are we holding the spending, where we're spending? Are we looking into those items and determining, okay, is this beneficial for the community, for the faculty or the students? Are we more concerned with the students? You know what I'm saying? As far as where we're spending the money, where the percentages are falling. You know, where you can, save money, and some of this can kick back and help the taxpayers out. Is that something we've looked at in depth? You know what I'm saying? You know, are we spending the proper way? Are we spending the tax dollars the proper way? Are we being held accountable? How can I say, the chain of command? Somebody has to be, there has to be a point where we say no to something. We can't say yes to everything. So it has to be a no to something. But I'm saying, if we look deep down and said, is there a no to something? Because right now, I spend most of my dollars outside of Clayton County because of restaurants, things of those natures. If we bring the businesses in and we make the businesses pay, we can save money. But what is it about Clayton County that's not allowing the businesses to come and stay? Because we have to go outside of Clayton County. So that's the problem too. If we bring businesses that are making money, instead of me having to ride all the way to Henry County to Target, I have to spend my money if we have a Target here. And I know it's not your choice of what businesses come here, but it's something that has to do with Clayton County that's going on, that the businesses are not liking what they see. So my question is, what is it? And you might not be able to answer it. Or what is it? What is it about Clayton County that's not bringing those businesses in? That's the thing. That's, to me, I think that would help us, help the schools and help the students. Okay.
Those are great questions.
But I know I'm at the wrong one.
Yes, but we still appreciate that, because it puts pressure on us and the board to speak to our colleagues that are in the commissions department and have these conversations with
Because the
themselves.
superintendent has to sign off everything
Absolutely.
that comes through that door.
And
So we have to hold somebody accountable for those expenditures and things that are being spent.
correct.
So that's what I'm saying.
Excellent. Now, you were the last speaker, so now the superintendent will get up, and I'm going to extend his time to 5 minutes as opposed to 3 minutes. So he has 5 minutes to address these questions that he heard. You want to do it here, or you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, and community. Thank you for being here today. I need some static guard on my pants to clean until my socks, so Don't look below the knees. Great questions. First of all, as the board chairman pointed out earlier about the separation between property taxes and sales taxes. Sales taxes we use to build facilities and infrastructure for our students and staff. I'm gonna be honest. Okay, that's all I know how to do is be honest. Over some decades, we didn't do some of the more sophisticated means of getting things financed like surrounding school systems did in terms of utilizing bonds. And in a lot of cases, the community went back to the community and asked that they go beyond the maximum millage rate in order to collect more money to buy schools. We didn't do those things. And as a result, our infrastructure got absolutely outdated. But thanks to the great citizens in 2023 and in 2025, you allowed for us to pass a SPLOST referendum that included bonds. So we're beginning now to update our school system. You go around, you see our athletic facilities, a lot of schools are being worked on, more to come. So we got a solution for that. That has nothing to do with property taxes. You talk about where do I go when you leave here? If you stay in the metro Atlanta area, you go to a community that pays even higher property taxes. Clayton County values are very low, and over time, over recent years, more and more folks started showing more attention and desire to move to Clayton County. So when that happens, values start to rise pretty quickly. And when you're the lowest in the metro Atlanta area, you can, like for instance, year before last, it increased by 18%. Last year, 10%. Now this year, only 1%. Now, Mr. Drew, you mentioned about why we opted out of House Bill 581. 581 allows for your property taxes to move at the rate of inflation, meaning that more than likely was not going to go beyond 2.5% to 3% because that's what the inflation rate was. Well, as you can see this year, it only increased by 1%. So House Bill 580, like for instance, that would have been a benefit in terms of locking rates down 2 years ago, or even last year when it was 10 and 18% increase. But this year it only increased 1%. So that really didn't have any real bearing. It just didn't move. We did a rollback rate 2 years ago for the first time in about 14 years. We wanted to signal to the community that we are looking out for you and got your best interest at heart relative to your property taxes when it comes to the schools. So we lowered it from the maximum rate to 19.6 to try to provide some relief to the homeowners. Y'all pay the boat. We got a high volume of renters in our community that don't pay at the same rate if they were all individual homeowners. A lot of exemptions happen in terms of businesses. We have no control over that. We have no control over how they set your values. I would imagine that having a better school system provokes interest from other folks who want to move here, and that's what we've seen. A lot of folks now are wanting to move here over the most recent years, so homes are selling. When homes sell in your local area, your values go up mostly. That's what's been going on. They're beginning to stabilize now because we're beginning to kind of catch up in the, of course, the metro Atlanta area. But the values between homeowners in Clayton versus Henry or Fayette or even DeKalb or Atlanta is much lower. Much, much lower. I don't want you to go and fuss at county commissioners and mayors and municipality folks, but some of your questions have to be answered by them, to be quite honest with you. Now, I wish we just had one big meeting with the municipalities, the counties, and the school system, so we can all have that conversation at one time. Because right now, you gotta come and hear from us, and you see, well, the county's saying, the school system's saying, I'm only gonna go $4 and something on a $250,000 house. You'll see your tax bill. That's absolutely not the case. It's $4, you be home watching the Falcons game or something tonight, versus here, right? But you know that's not reality. Your county, and depending on your municipality, that's the bulk of where your increases are occurring. That's it. We didn't even move it. Now, we could have pushed it back with the rollback rate. We need every dollar we can get to continue to educate these children that are so far behind. In terms of what 1 meal means to us, that we can do work. You started the data. 1 meal means 12 million for us. 1 meal means Atlanta for 30, 20, 50 million. What about as close as Henry County? What's 1 meal down there? So we know we're at the bottom. So, and we're already struggling. And so how are we gonna say, let's receive less income, less tax money, less property tax money to be able to do a heavy lift with educating our children? That's just difficult to do. It's just difficult to do, to say, let's collect less money. Even though we didn't increase the millage rate, we can increase the millage rate back to its maximum rate and then get more millions in. But we elected not to put that burden on the taxpayers, because we know what's going on. In some municipalities, it's going up 90%. That's not us. That's just not us. Even though we're in this together as a community, we're not the ones that's going out evaluating the property values, increasing it to the point where you're seeing a 90% swing. I get the frustration. It's just not us that's doing it. Now, whatever needs that they may have to justify increasing it at such an outrageous rate, I would certainly pose that question to them, so they can tell you, here's why. I can tell you why we kept it at 9.6 and then rolled it back. Because we're trying to build buildings, you talk about how we're being responsible by spending it. I like to give all of our teachers the highest salary increases that we can. We can't afford that. So when you talk about sacrificing, our teachers, they see what Atlanta pays them. Somebody mentioned that they work in Atlanta. We can't compete with that. But we try to be competitive because we gotta have teachers. And if we don't give them something, then we're gonna lose them all. And we're probably middle of the road in terms of what we pay our educators. Middle of the road, we ain't up the top. We're not at the bottom either, because we have to be competitive to be able to keep more teachers coming. That's one of the reasons why we have every year fewer and fewer vacancies. At some point, because we were so far off the mark with what we pay our teachers, we lose 500-600 teachers every year. But now that we've been more competitive, because we're trying to maximize the use that we have with the dollars that we collect, to try to keep them and pay them a little bit more to stay. So to lose some of that money, we lose our competitive edge where we pay teachers, because your property taxes pay the teacher's salary as well, as you saw in the chart. So I don't know if I was succinct in my explanation, but I'm certainly willing to hear from you in terms of, Smith, can you be a little bit more specific about this point or that point, if you need for me to do that? Or as he adjourns the meeting, I would be more than happy to stick around and engage with you in a conversation.
That's fantastic. Let's adjourn this meeting so that they can get to you. Give me that money. Before I adjourn the meeting, I'm joined here with my fellow board members, Sabrina Hill, Dr. Dee Haney, and Dr. Jesse Goree. They will be here also as this meeting is adjourned. So if you have questions for board members, they're right here to have conversations with you. Right, okay. The meeting is now officially adjourned. Any questions that you have, my board members are sitting here, the superintendent is there. Have your conversations with us and with the superintendent. And our last public hearing meeting is next Monday, August 25th at 11 a.m. I appreciate everybody's participation, and it was a pleasure to see you.